Hello friends, how are you today? Wow, I could not sleep last night. I don't know what is going on with these energies, but they're kind of wild. And I'd love to share my interpretation with you of this chart from today. Now, as I record this data has not shown up yet. So it's essentially intraday. It's an intraday chart, but we'll have the rest of the data soon. But since I was up anyway, I thought I would just make a video because there's so much going on. There's lots to talk about. So let me show you some interesting things here with the black charts. We're going to look at frequency, amplitude, and qualities. And then I'm going to show you some interesting things about historical images that relate to this Schumann resonance chart. Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? Oh, also, I wanted to show you this. I'm just putting out today this video of the astrology of the wave. And what I did was I took the initial wave that had the image of the child in it, and I did a birth chart for that wave because it's like that wave birthed what came after. That's what I've been talking about in the last few videos. And so that made a lot of sense to me to do it that way. And what was amazing is that this astrology chart, it's so relevant, and the energies that come through on this chart are so relevant and interesting. And there's a fixed star involved and a couple of other things. So you should take a look at that. That's going to come out before this video. Okay, so here's the frequency chart, and I'm going to go back and forth so that you can kind of visually look at this. But if you look at this set of, the rods that I've been calling them here, I want to show you that you don't really see a significant downward movement in any of the 4 resonance levels when we get those. The most, you have this movement in yellow and red before the rods, but during it, they're just spiking up and down. And I want to show you that that's a very different energetic response than when you get these other waves of energy, like this solid white and clear, right? So white resonance, it's a more expanded energy, and it really causes movement in the frequencies. And you look at the bottom here, it's solid white for almost 2 hours at 40 hertz. So we don't know what the hertz level was of this wave, but it was probably pretty high. And to me, what this looked like was it looked like a repeat of, the original wave we got back on the 22nd, but much clearer. So you see the difference in responses here. See how the frequencies really dip when the wave has a more expanded nature. Like the way that I see this is it's the white resonance, but what it's doing is it's showing us where the action is on the chart. And you're going to see that as we get further into the black charts. The other thing I want to just point out is that this shape has a lot of that round effect. And I remember I was calling this, the waves appeared like this with the round effect a year ago, and I called it a lens wave. And I have some videos on those lens waves if you wanted to go back and look at those. Now, I also looked at what happened at this green. It's really a green wave because this is, I'm not sure what this is here on the chart, but I did mirror it, so you'll see that in a minute. But what's interesting is that when that occurred, there was a pretty spiky dip in the white and the yellow, but not in the red or the green. Isn't that interesting? This was really, really had an effect in the yellow, which in my view represents the 4th dimension, or the astral closest to the human body, the non-physical closest to the human body. And there's an interesting image in there I'll show you. Okay, so now this wave is interesting because it combines this long wave. It's like a degradation of that long wave. But it also combines the rods that we've been seeing here. And that happens here. And it's really interesting because the biggest thing that happens during this wave is really the spikiness in white. I thought that was really interesting. Again, there's not much of a dip here in yellow or red. There is a pretty substantial dip in green, though, so it really seems to affect the green. And just to quickly look here, you do have dips in this last one as well, which is this rod here plus this rounded portion. There's a lot of starts and stops in these images here at the end of the chart. And it's interesting, this black line is a start and stop in the data. That's the meaning of the black line. It essentially, for whatever reason, we don't know why, but there is no data on the chart at that time at 5 a.m. on the chart on the 27th here. Now, it's really interesting because you see that the amplitudes were already at 80, but they spiked to 87 during this second set of waves. So at night or early this morning. Actually, now this is about almost 24 hours ago. Okay. So basically, the amplitude means the power of the wave. And I want to show you this. See this really interesting pattern here? Isn't it interesting? Because the spiking of the amplitudes and the choppiness of it just totally mirrored the, boom, boom, boom of the rods, of the light coming in at that time. It's almost like short bursts of transmission, right? Of an energy transmission. It's really interesting. So this was very powerful here, even though it presented without the fullness of this wave. And I thought that was interesting. And I think the power is really, it's in this portion here that goes to 40 hertz, right? And it goes probably much higher than 40 hertz because it's a better part of an hour at 40 hertz there. So that was very strong and potent. And the amplitudes were very well grouped together. If you look at the highs here, we've got 69 and 45 in green and 87 and 56 in red. So they were in a pretty tight grouping. They were all fairly strong. It's really interesting just to look at how the qualities looked during those 5 rods because look how spiky they are here. And most consistently in the red and the green. The qualities were still fairly moderate because you've got only spiking to about 10 in white and yellow, 12 in red, but you get up to 17 here. We get up to 17. That was the most movement at 1 a.m. here on the chart in green. And if we look at what that was, you can see it was this rod here, right there. And that's the one with, it had high amplitude, probably about 80. So, yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to show you in terms of the images. First, I want to look at the current images. So what it looked like to me, because I've seen this on the chart before, and actually the first time that I did this, it was Spiralia, at Spiralia on Twitter. You're the one that had you had tweeted me about it, and what she had done was taken a piece of, the way. See how this looks like it's a piece, and essentially, it looks like it belongs, over here, or actually it looks like it belongs actually over here, but that there was like a time delay, right? It looks like it belongs over there. And actually this over here, what I did with this one was I put it over here. But I had to turn it around to do that. Here we go. And so it's like piecing it together. So I'm going to undo this and let me show you the chart that I made from that. So this is here. I mirrored this and I pieced together these pieces of the wave. This one here, this half here, and so put together the three pieces. So it's like the wave was chopped up into three sections, and then you see the roundedness behind the solid white of a lens type shape. And it's interesting because what it reminded me of was this rod energy. Now these rods are coming one after another, but it's very, these portions of the waves looking like you could put them together. It looks very piecemeal, right? Like, it also looks like a shift in directions, and that comes before the data stops. And it's interesting, intuitively, these lines in the black lines in the chart where the data stops. We often I often will look at that and others as well and do an intuitive hit on it, like, oh, there's some kind of a shift there. And indeed, I feel there was, because you see the left side of this roundedness, it looks very different, right? It's not clear like the white wave here is. And let's take a look at the image when I mirrored that here. I'm going to show you what I saw. It's so interesting. What I see here is, here's an eye and an eye here, and they're linked by sort of the brow or the line of the nose up there, high up. And I see a round face right here, and then a mouth right there. So almost like the face of the babe that was in the first, or the face of the, I don't know if it was a boy or a girl. I think I called it a boy in the first wave. But look down here. Here are two faces facing each other. Here I see the eye, the nose, and then the mouth. And the mouth is downturned, right? Is downturned, kind of like the, I don't know, is it like the MPC expression? I'm not really sure. But it's, so there's like two sides of something facing off against each other, right? And they're in this portion that got carved off of the wave, that rather than being solid white, it's like filled with all this yellow and red energy. And then you get this stop in the data, the black. And if we're going to look at this as the wave came in three sections that just sort of started and stopped, it's like there were two energies facing off related to this child, right? The child that literally the first wave appeared to come out of the mind of the child, this image. In that's a cool video if you look at the June 22nd video of the Schumann. But they faced off. And then when they faced off, what happened was the tenor of the wave shifted. Its nature shifted. It's like a decision was made that we're not going to go with this energy, right? We're going to go with this energy. And I just thought that was really cool. And then this rod type wave comes in again, and all of this energy comes off of it. Like, you go in a direction and you have to leave something behind, but this isn't to the left, right? It's to the right. So as we move forward, there's some dissonance, right, to clear up because of this choice of change in direction. And in the United States, it's so interesting because there's been Supreme Court ruling after Supreme Court ruling after Supreme Court ruling that are really taking a major shift in direction in this country. And it's so interesting because it matches so perfectly with the astrology stories that I told about the energy, going back about 3 or 4 astrology videos. And those are all my astrology videos are linked in the detail in the last astrology video, which is the one right before this, or they're in the astrology stories playlist. But the key message that came through with that was, Saturn in Aquarius, and that we were gonna bring our traditions forward with us into the new age, and we're gonna elevate them as we do that. And we're not. It's not a return to the past. It's a taking of those, valued traditions, valued and proven ways of being successful, living together in community, growing human families, raising sane people, right, who are connected with God, connected with the divinity within them. And so we take the basis of that tradition and move forward into the new age with it. So we upgrade ourselves. But as we move forward and we move into the new, and there's going to be new, right? We're going to have new approaches and new solutions, but grounded in our tradition. And that's what I was talking about in the astrology stories and what the astrology said to me. And it's just so amazing and then we see these 5 rods here. And I just thought that it was so interesting how they were so similar to the energy of what's going on, at least in this country. And yes, are multiple interpretations of this energy valid? Yes, they are. And I explain that. I explain the why of why you can interpret energy that way in one of the recent Schumann videos. So all the series of this videos are linked below, so you can take a look at the other ones if you haven't seen them yet, because it's a great story. This series of waves, there's some great teaching moments in here about how energy works as well. So now here's what I want to do, and I'm going to go back to the regular intraday chart. When I was looking at this, this shape here reminded me of the spider that I used to see on the chart quite a bit, especially in 2019 and 2020, maybe even in 2018. But I wanted to show you how some images on this chart are extremely similar to some images from previous charts of other years. So let me just show you that right now. Okay, this is so fascinating because this is November 24th of 2019. And look at this. Look at these. It's a similar presentation of rods of light. Now, the coloring in them looks very different, with the exception of this one at the end, right? And it's so interesting. It's almost like in this version of these rods, it was like there's a clearing and they get clearer and clearer until boom, at the end, solid, almost solid white. And then this is what I want to show you here, that this little, when I was doing the videos on this, I called this the spider. And I do have some of these videos at the very beginning of my list of videos, my oldest videos in my channel. If you go back and look at that and want to hear about this chart, I also have a couple blog posts on my blog from 2019 that talk about this. But so here's the spider, and to me it looked like, so here's the body, and then here's the 6 legs. I mean, I guess it's an insect as well, but sometimes there's a 4th set of legs. But to me, it just feels like a spider. So that's what I call it. It could be an insect. And it typically shows in the chart with this red body and then these extensions here. And it would appear most commonly after there had been like a huge amount of white resonance energy on the chart. And then I wanted to show you, let's see, just looking through my, okay, here we go. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. Okay, so first let me show you the whole chart. This was July 4th of 2020. And isn't it interesting how the wave shape 2 years ago, this wave, look how similar this is to the current waves we're looking at. I just find it stunning that, that, you know, it's just interesting how certain wave shapes do repeat on the Schumann resonance chart. Now, what's interesting is this one here, I had talked about, I think in the June 22nd video in this wave series, I had talked about how how sometimes there's an angel type of wave that appears, and it was very different from the angel wings that we saw in this wave series. And this is it right here. It's like you had this solid, for like almost 2 hours here, this almost solid white wave of energy. And then look how that just looked like a wing, right? And it looked like the angel was actually facing backwards in the chart. And then there was this image here. I did a whole video on this. You could look back and find it. This is from early July of 2020. That was cool. But now, when this chart came out intraday, and this is the full day chart, but I'm going to show you what it looked like. Okay, so when I first saw this chart, I looked at it at the 1800 here, whatever time that was my time, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's that same spider, but just significantly larger on the chart. And indeed, it did show up right after a huge wave of light on the chart of the white resonance light. And then you get this spider shape. Now let me remove this again. And the first half of it is more red, and then the second half of it begins to fill with light. So there is almost a mirroring that's actually on the chart here. And you can see how it's like there's an interruption here. Isn't it so interesting? And if we're looking at the Schumann resonance, and we're looking at it as a reflection of human consciousness, and at that time I said the body's doubled, there's a dimensional warping. There's a shift. And so it's possible that this comes into our consciousness, right? This spidery type, that I call it spidery type image, and it's filled with all this red and yellow, and we say, with our human consciousness, we say, no, I don't like that, as a group. And then what happens? There's a shift. Like, we make a strong enough decision collectively together that we shift the energies, and then the body repeats. Or we upshift in dimensional state, and then we perceive it from a slightly different layer of the dimensional state that this was on, and maybe a slightly more expanded layer. So there's more white energy, there's more expanded white resonance energy in the body of the insect or the spider. Gosh, I remember doing that video now, and I'm pretty sure I did say insect in that video as well. So fascinating. And it's interesting because this also at the time I remember looked like a person. Now that I look at it, it looks like this, the white when it fills in looks like a person over this spider. And it's true, I think, that we've been captured, right? We've been captured by this spidery energy, this archonic energy, this forces of darkness, the distortions away from the truth of who we are. And as we clear this, we're able to more effectively express the truth of our own soul and to get more into contact with the purity of ourselves, right? The purity of us. And so then this time now in 2022, right, here the spider appears again, and here again there's that, if you will, dimensional warping, right? Or there's just stopping and starting. It's like humanity is making a choice, making a decision. okay, the energy is coming out like this. No, I don't like that. Big shift, okay, shift and data shift reflecting that. This energy looks fully formed here. I don't know if this is a clearing or what. And then just boom, suddenly there's a wave. Here's another piece of it. So I just wanted to share that with you. And it's over the spider, right? Because you can see the legs here and here and here and here and here and here. But the legs are much more faded now. The red is, it's only showing here. And the white resonance is now almost covering the body with a huge rod going to past 40 hertz and a huge green wave as well. So we're overcoming the spider. We're overcoming the archonic influence. We're overcoming the forces of darkness. We're overcoming the alien influence. We're overcoming the insect hive mind influence on humanity through, forms of governance that do not value life, or forms of living that do not value life, however that's expressed in the human world. And that's the beauty of this. And that's what the energy says to me today.